Let's go ahead and get into this top 16 match between LEN DEUEL and RENZO Navarro. Only one of these players can come out of top and move on to the top 8 of the Latin America International Championships. For RENZO Navarro in this first game, we're going to see the Volcarona and the Basque Legion, and for LEN, it's the Tyranitar and the Corviknight.
Lentar has hit the field. This is Grass Terra, so you can go for that Grass Terra immediately and just be able to take the wave crashes. Of course, right now, LEN's Pokemon are vulnerable to super effective attacks from both ends. You've got the Wave Crash from the Basque Legion, you've got Heat Wave from the Volcarona, and so we could see a Terra because right now everything on the field is being threaded, and critically, few of the Pokemon actually carry Protect here, and there it is, a Terra to start.
A Terastallization kind of makes a lot of sense for RENZO as well, because you're taking a look at something like this Volcarona being weak in the face of this Tyranitar.
Yep.
And the Fairy Terra is going to be nice because this Corviknight actually does not have a Steel type attack, so you won't be taking super effective damage from that regard. The Flip Turn though? Okay! A little bit of damage there to that Corviknight.
But critically, Tyranitar doesn't Terra, and no target into that. It's able to just break the turn and get out of it relatively free, and so Volcarona goes for that Terra, like you said, Rose, to get around the Rock Slide specifically from the Tyranitar. RENZO hoping to maybe bait out a Terra or a Switch there, but LEN doesn't give up either, and Rillaboom comes out, but Rillaboom, of course, not the strongest Pokemon in a Corviknight. Let's see what Volcarona wants to opt for.
Yeah, and it's also vulnerable because this Corviknight has access to Brave Bird. The Heat Wave, though, onto the Corviknight. It's going to chunk it down to just a sliver of its HP left. Good thing this Corviknight does have this Citrus Berry to be able to recover a little bit of its HP. And the Brave Bird now into the Volcarona just helps to chip it away.
Yeah, there's just so much bulk on LEN's team. This is the style that he loves to play. Rock Slide comes out, it doesn't do that much damage, but in the end, I think you're probably pretty happy of your LEN because he took a risk of just not Terraing Tyranitar. Now he gets to hold on to that Terra and does not get demolished by something like that Wave Crash immediately. Corviknight also critically survives that double up. If it faints, you don't get that Brave Bird off. You lose the tool that's valuable into Rillaboom, and now you can see LEN considering going for that Terra. You do have the free play of going for Fake Out into Tyranitar and just Heat Waving here. Try to get the flinch onto Tyranitar and bait out a Terra as well and knock out Corviknight. So let's see if that's what RENZO wants to opt for here.
I like the way that RENZO started this game though, because you have a Basque Legion and Volcarona to try to pin this Terra onto the Tyranitar, and you have sort of a similar thing with this Rillaboom as well. Could do super effective damage with something like a Wood Hammer into this Tyranitar, and so LEN now going to actually use that Terastallization to have this defensive Terra, but is it actually going to backfire? The Fake Out goes into the Tyranitar, so it's not going to get a chance to move now, but because this Heat Wave from this Volcarona is now going to be super effective, this Tyranitar has to kind of sit there and think a little bit.
Yeah, this was a really safe play by RENZO, so LEN went for that Grass Terra because you don't want to feint to just Wood Hammer plus Heat Wave, but by going for that Grass Terra, you do become weak to Heat Wave. You lose your Sandstorm special defense buff as well since you're no longer Rock typing, and so a Tyranitar now is getting chipped away. My question is, what is the 4 Pokemon from RENZO's end? Because if you have that Sneasler, if you have that Baxcalibur, you can hit the Tyranitar for super effective damage now. So Golden Go is going to come out. You've baited out the Fairy Terra, so like Choice Specs Make It Rain right now is very, very powerful.
Yeah, but the problem is this Volcarona is still going to be pretty speedy. Golden Go, I don't know how this one in particular is trained, but sometimes you have to take a look at how the speed is trained on these Golden Go, because that can vary just a little bit. It's going to be a Choice Specs variant, so it's going to be able to at least hit really hard. Yeah,
you do have the ability to just go for Heat Wave here, right? With the Volcarona, you're threatening for super effective damage, but Golden Go's faster than the Volcarona! Absolutely huge there! Makes a huge swing in this matchup, because otherwise it would have just eaten up the Heat Wave. So like you called out, Rose, the speeds really do matter.
Wow, LEN must have been so confident about that one. That is a huge knockout onto the Volcarona. The Rillaboom gets a chance to actually survive here, and so with this Miracle Seed boosted grassy terrain Wood Hammer, you're going to be doing a good amount of damage to this Tyranitar, but because of how much you took from that Make It Rain, you are knocking yourself out in the process from that recoil. A knockoff would have come through as well, but it's not needed here as LEN secures a double knockout.
Yeah, it's so interesting because Volcarona naturally is faster than Golden Go, but because you're running Quiver Dance, you might want to invest in a lot in bulk, saying, you know what, I'm going to get a Quiver Dance anyway. It is, however, critically King Gambit in the back, so RENZO does have a lot of offense right now, right? You've gotten Choice Scarf Basque Legion out, and LEN doesn't really have that many resistances. Tyranitar technically resists the water type attack, right? But at this point, you are so low. Wave Crash is so powerful. I think for RENZO, one of the questions is, do you want to commit to the Wave Crash or do you want to commit to the Last Respects? Because you still have to deal with the final Pokemon in LEN's back.
And you still have to worry a little bit if you're LEN about, I just locked my Golden Go into a Make It Rain with this Choice Specs. There's nothing else that I can do right now to get outside of that, except to just keep attacking, which leaves RENZO with this possibility of this King Gambit just going for something like the Sucker Punch.
Yeah, I think RENZO, I would actually give the advantage to right now because he is faster and threatens with a lot of offense, and Golden Go's caught in a really tough spot. This is Sandvale Garchomp, so attacks can miss right now. Pay attention to this. It's going to be critical.
Yeah, so the Garchomp now taking the place of this Golden Go, so if there were to be a Sucker Punch coming out, it would not be able to work, but the Last Respects into the Tyranitar is going to deal enough damage to get that final KO. So we're going to see a 2v2 here for this very first game in our top 16. The Cow Cleave looks like it is going to actually hit.
It lagged for a little bit. I was like, what's going on?
I was on the edge of my seat. I was like, you know what? Iron just spoke this into existence, but it actually does connect onto the Garchomp, but that could very well not be the case on the next turn.
Yeah, well, Golden Go now comes out, right? So you're vulnerable to Sucker Punch and Last Respects. Yes, you have Protect with your Choice Spec, so protecting means that slot's just absolutely useless, right? And so now the question is, can Garchomp pull off this win? But my answer is I don't think so, right? Because like Earthquake, not very powerful. You don't really want to be Earthquaking your own Golden Go either. So there's the option of Trick. Okay, I like it. Trick and Protect here. Try to get rid of that Choice Scarf. The idea is then Garchomp will be faster. So Garchomp is going to Protect. And let's see, because if you went for Sucker Punch and Last Respects, this will work.
Yeah, the Last Respects into the Golden Go.
And it's safe to go for that because you know that like Garchomp's Earthquake or Dragon Claw isn't going to knock out your Basculegion anyway. So I like Len's attempt there, saying, you know, if you target the Garchomp, I maybe have an out here, but RENZO doesn't fall for it. And this is why I was saying Basculegion is such an important Pokemon in this matchup.
Basculegion is able to get the big KO onto the Golden Go, leaving this Garchomp by itself. And with that, it's just going to be really tough for Len to actually win this first game. RENZO had the perfect pin with the Pokemon at the very beginning, and even now can just consistently follow up here. Last Respects is going to do a lot. The Sucker Punch as well, just going to whittle away at this Garchomp, so the Basculegion can finish up this game number 1.
Wow, RENZO managing to conserve this Basculegion all the way until the end game. Choice Scarf adaptability with that Last Respects is just such a big nuke button, right? And I think RENZO did a really good job honing in, recognizing, look, okay, I am really threatened by Basculegion by a couple of things, right? I'm not going to be able to knock out Tyranitar that easily if the Grass Terras, and Tyranitar can just click knockoff into me and potentially get a knockout. And so I think a couple key turns there. Len expanded his Terra on the Tyranitar, but in the end, didn't really help out very much and actually made him vulnerable to the Heat Wave. So RENZO's positioning was really, really smart. I think one of the other things is that Len was just kind of slower than RENZO for a lot of this game, and Len's team is really bulky, so normally you want to like be able to soak up the damage and then be able to deal a lot of damage in return, but the damage trades weren't that great, and when you're slower, it can be really tough. So one of the things to maybe consider is that there is Tailwind on the Corviknight and Kilowatcher in this matchup. If you set up that Tailwind, you can at least turn the speeds a little bit more in your favor.
You also have that Fire Terra. It's not going to help out versus something like the Basculegion, but we did end up seeing the Volcarona as well as the Rillaboom be really key pieces for RENZO to actually pin that Tyranitar and that Terra. So I wonder maybe if you consider Corviknight, instead of taking that big amount of Heat Wave damage like it did at the first couple of turns of that game 1, if you consider terrestrializing it, if you think that that Basculegion is going to go away for a little while.
Yeah, like I think once again, baiting out the Terra is going to be such a big deal in this matchup. Are you able to bait it out correctly? And if you are, then you can get a big advantage of your RENZO, because I think Len's team really likes the turns where you're able to survive a big attack and then knock out a big threat in return. But RENZO didn't really give many opportunities for that in that last game, going for the safe flip turn rather than risking it with Wave Crash. I think it might be tempting to click Wave Crash in that first turn, right? But recognizing, look, I don't want to trade Basculegion. Like if you trade Basculegion for, you know, and Basculegion gets knocked out in return, a 1-for-1 trade actually isn't really worth it, because Basculegion can be an entire carry, as we saw in the end of game 1.
Last Respects gets so strong, especially if you're going to have the other partners around you get knocked out before you come in and try to be the anchor for this game. But let's get into game number 2 now of this best of 3 and top 16 of the Latin America International Championships. It's going to be the Volcarona and the Rillaboom this time around here for RENZO, and it is once again that Tyranitar and Corviknight.
Yeah, this is scary immediately because you do pressure with Woodhammer onto the Tyranitar slot, right? So you could go for something like Woodhammer. You can see Len's content. There's that Fire Terror you were talking about. But if Tyranitar just goes down immediately, suddenly the Basculegion looks really scary. So this could be a really volatile turn 1 here. We see the Brave Bird hover into Volcarona. Rillaboom does have fake out pressure onto both Pokemon right now, and neither Tyranitar nor Corviknight can protect.
Well, it's going to be a Terastallization for RENZO first, so once again, committing that Terastallization onto this Volcarona, that Fairy Terra going to be very helpful against the Tyranitar in particular, but where does RENZO's damage actually go?
Let's see. It's going to be a trade in Terras. I think the Terra Volcarona makes a lot of sense because you just wanted to survive for a couple of turns, right? Being able to have it out on the field allows you to not just lose a Pokemon immediately, and that's really crucial in a matchup like this. And so Terra's expanded both immediately, but it's the fake out onto the Corviknight. Okay.
Big fake out onto the Corviknight, so it can't do anything here, and it's going to allow room for this Volcarona to actually go for a Quiver Dance. So unlike what we saw in this game number 1, RENZO's very content to try to get a couple of stacks onto this Volcarona, see if maybe the speed will be able to outplay and outpace this. And Len, that Rock Slide is not going to hit either target.
Yeah, it would have not done like a ton of damage, but every little bit of chip damage matters into Volcarona here. Now RENZO is a very safe play of just going for a Heat Wave and Woodhammer onto Tyranitar. You could even Terra Blast that slot as well, would cover for like a Garchomp switch in, for example. And so I think one of the scary things is when you don't have Protect on your Pokemon, it's very easy to double up into a slot right now.
Oh, that's too bad. Yeah, I mean, even at this point, Volcarona, even having just that speed boost plus that special attack, you're going to be looking at dealing some really good neutral damage to anything. I wonder, too, even if Corviknight goes for the tail one now, is this actually going to be enough of a benefit for Len's final couple Pokemon? Okay,
it's just going to be the Protect. So I think if you manage to set up the Tailwind here with that Protect, if the Rillaboom knocks out, the taunt! That's absolutely huge. Basically, what Len was hoping for here is you knock out my Tyranitar, I get Golden Go out, Volcarona protected, boom, I click Make It Rain, knockout. But by going for that taunt, this is, of course, the Miracle Seed Rillaboom. It's not a Assault Vest, so it can run that taunt. You can see Rock Slide does not do very much damage, and that's a huge taunt there, I think, because RENZO does not take the bait. Golden Go would have been amazing there if Tyranitar gets KO'd and you've set up Tailwind. And I was saying Tailwind was the adaptation, but Taunt is the way to deal with that Tailwind.
It really is. This Rillaboom is fantastic. That Taunt has been able to come in so handy, and now Len's got to think about a different game plan. This is so risky. Do you actually go for the switch completely raw like this?
I think, yeah, the idea is you kind of have to. You want to give up a Pokemon because you want to conserve the Rillaboom ideally for that Basculegion, especially now that Terra's been committed on the Volcarona. So it is just going to be that Heat Wave, one-hit knockout onto the Golden Go with that Quiver Dance boost. And I think Brave Bird probably knocks out the Rillaboom, so if you actually get rid of the Rillaboom here, it's not the worst trade. Woodhammer's not going to do the most into the Corviknight here, but let's see. It's actually still a decent amount with the Miracle Seed and Terrain.
It's still a good amount of damage, but you still have to contend with the fact that those Corviknights can still fire off one of those Brave Birds. It hasn't been able to do nearly as much, though, as Len would have liked it to have been able to do in this game. A KO is going to have to be what it takes for right now, but you're still pretty behind here if you're Len.
Yeah, it's just so tough, I think, with the inability to protect and the lack of speed control. Like, Volcarona now is just the fastest Pokemon on the field. And the Basculegion is still waiting to come out, right? So if you are RENZO, you ideally want to deal with the... I mean, nothing at this point actually can take Basculegion super well, to be honest. So, like, Tyranitar comes out, but I think it's just a safe switch in for Basculegion. Yeah, because you've already committed to Terra, so you can very freely just go for Wave Crash right now.
Wave Crash can still only hit just a couple of times, and the Tyranitar is still probably going to be, like, pretty bulky, right? I would assume maybe you could take one Wave Crash, but not after you are going to have this for initial damage from this Terra Fairy Terra Blast. Salt Vest certainly helps out with that. This is still going to be very bulky. but Flip Turn is planning to be able to pick up the Corviknight.
Yeah, I think the idea behind not wave crashing there is, you know, you want the Basket Legion to clean up the game, and like you said, Basket Legion doesn't get that many wave crashes because if you're getting these knockouts, you take so much in recoil. So the idea here is, you know what, let me conserve it because I can't just pick up 2 knockouts right now. Let me bring out the Basket Legion later on. King Gambit's the final one, and with this Fairy Terra on the Volcarona, you can now pressure Terra Blast onto Garchomp. Knockoff comes out, removes the Salt Vest, but that's not really super valuable here. And so I think RENZO has really pinned LEN into a difficult spot, and I don't see too much of an out here for LEN other than some very lucky misses from the Sandvale.
Yeah, you've got this King Gambit has low kick, so it's going to be dealing 4 times super effective damage to this Tyranitar. You have the opportunity to go for sucker punches as well, and it's going to be really tough to be able to get through this Volcarona anyway, but Garchomp has an interesting move on its moveset with that substitute, but this Terra Blast is going to go first from this Volcarona, and it's going right into that Garchomp.
Yeah, critically does not miss. +1 Terra Blast just secures the one-hit knockout there. So it was going to be difficult from LEN. I think the key turn in this game was the taunt onto the Corviknight, denying the Tailwind, and low kick just outspeeding Tyranitar, secures the one-hit knockout, and RENZO keeps LATAM's dreams alive of winning this tournament, advancing to top 8 in a very, very decisive victory.
Wow, I mean, it just feels like it was sort of a bad role from LEN to have to go into a matchup like this, but RENZO was so commanding.